Hey, welcome to the Omni Shelf. This is Tim Wright. So, we're doing the new introduction to the Lurianic Kabbalah called the Hakdama. And what this is essentially it's a teaching text that was given to all students who studied the Tree of Life, called the Etz Chaim by Luria. Now, Vital was the one who wrote it, so he was very, very knowledgeable in what he wrote about Luria and Luria's teachings. So, for the first time on the Omni Shelf, in English, really, we're going to do a line-by-line commentary and an exegesis on exactly what's being said. Now, I used AI to help me with this, but I have, it's not psychology, it's just a helpful tool to learn what the text is saying deeper. So I used an actual translation to do my commentary. I did a bullet point line by line on the actual text, not AI making anything up. And then we did a little summary paragraph after each one of those line-by-line commentaries. Now, this is available on the Omni Shelf, so it's not really an ad, but I will make this one available so you at least know to go to the Omni Shelf. But I'm not making it a purchasable library on Omni Shelf, so you'll have to subscribe to my Patreon to do that. And, just go to patreon.com/being-reintegrated, and all paid members will have access to the new Lurianic Kabbalah Omni Shelf. Because Omni Shelf is primarily for my Dukta Palatine preservation project, so I wanted to be able to give that for free. Now, Illumination of Genesis is there as well. It's 6 books, so I felt like that wasn't fair to make people go out there and pay oodles of money for 6 books. So that's on the Omni Shelf as well. You pay a $3 subscription and you'll have access to it. Sorry to anybody who subscribed. The links are definitely working now. Anyway, so Lurianic Kabbalah was talked about through this introduction. And it's in, I believe it's 13 parts. Let me check. The first part was the one that was always done in parts. So part 1 was always done in parts, and then the rest of them get to a little bit more of a condensed version. It looks like there's 13 parts. So I'm doing a line-by-line commentary on all 13 parts of the introduction. Now, like I said, this was a text that Chaim Vital required students of Lurianic Kabbalah to study over and over and over. It's basically what Lurianic Kabbalah is in its summarization, rather than looking at all the technical stuff in it. Now, I'm really going to do the Etz Chaim on an Omni Shelf library, so don't feel like this is just a way to get you to buy yet another introductory Luria book that doesn't really go into the details. The details of Lurianic Kabbalah are in Etz Chaim, so I'm going through a systematic treatment of that. I will be doing commentary, but like I said, we're going to keep that one on Patreon so it doesn't clutter up the Omni Shelf with all this stuff. Since Dukta Palatine has kind of a Gnostic view, I wanted Illuminism of Genesis to be there as well for my Illuminists, but this is definitely something that only specialists will want to know about. It's Lurianic Kabbalah. It's kind of complicated, so go ahead and grab that introduction course if you want. It'll be a link on the Patreon very soon to paid subscribers. So anyway, that being said, I'm really happy with the results of this introduction. Even part 1, which goes into, I believe, 14 parts, 14 sections. So Part 1 talks about what's called the shattering of the vessels. And this shattering of the vessels is basically, the way I understand it, is each sephira, each sphere or hypostasis, as it's called in the Gnostic tradition, and it could be very well related to the Valentinian aeonology, but I'm not sure, and I don't want to make that leap to say that Luria was a Valentinian. But there is a kind of like experience that each Sephiroth shattered because it tried to contain too much what they call light, but substance in and of itself. So what happened is, one couldn't relate and share with the other, so it got so greedy that it tried to keep itself defined without having relationship to the other. Well, when this happened, it shattered the vessel. What I find really cool is that in this doctrine, you can go and see part 1. I'm not done yet, so it takes a moment to get all this material up. But in part 1, it talks about, in the shattering of the vessels, all these shards of intellectual and, hypostasis categories had to fall somewhere. The pansophic reality had to rest somewhere. And that rest was in Malkut. And I love this way of talking because it says that the fall was not a human sin, that it's not because you did something wrong, it's because it was necessary to hold the greediness of all the categories of the universe. Not self-centered greed, but just the lack of wanting to acknowledge entropy or any kind of other laws of thermodynamics, which Genesis doesn't do. But I found it very interesting that we were actually able to go to this place, that the fall isn't a bad thing. The fall is actually a really helpful thing to the universe. So, a lot of us are mistaken in this lifetime thinking that, the fall is a bad thing, and that, all I have to do is get back to my divine. And that's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, the more human you are, the more able you are to take in all the light. It's an ironic paradox, but you have to admit that you're taking on too much divine mind and limit the mind from trying to power grab at the concepts. It's super difficult. I have a hard time with it too. Don't feel alone in this. But what happens is the mind takes a kind of tactic toward ultimate knowledge, the omniscience, the omnipotence, the omnivalent mind tries to grab more than it is due. So it takes the categories of knowledge itself and tries to own them. Well, in doing so, you can't restrict the mind from doing that. So what happens is you just end up stuck in an area where you're doing more and more power grabbing, trying to get more and more of your mind to allow you to control the situation. When that happens, the mind has a self-confirming bias. So we don't want to admit that we're wrong. We don't want to admit that we have faults. We don't want to admit that any way that we're going is actually kind of self-serving. So that's why it's so important to limit your own mind, which you have the free will to do so. But it's not what the mind's going to bring up to us. It's not going to be like, I think you've had too many cookies, so stop eating cookies. There's always this thing where it's like one more. Well, with the mind, there's no seeming consequence by doing that. So it can do it indefinitely and fabricate and abstract. And the more we do that, the less real we are. And it's so scary because the mind is built to do that. to discern, to order, to create function, to create hierarchies, to put knowledge categories out there. But the problem is that it doesn't know when to stop. And so that's one of the benefits of Lurianic Kabbalah. Is it says this is what happened to the original metaphysical constants called the Sephirot. The core architecture of reality could not stop trying to be all architecture all at once. So it shattered. And when it shattered, it throws another part of itself into a new category, trying to rebalance what's going on. But it can't do that again, so it shatters again until it gets to the human being, our mind, which is capable of receiving all of these sparks, all of this knowledge, but it's not capable of making all of that knowledge. And that is the hard part, because and a lot of this teaching, it's oral and it's hidden, and you don't really learn it by going to a book. So I'm really grateful that we're able in the Omni Shelf to release this kind of material. And also the second thing is that, there's too much garbage talk with Kabbalah. We're embarrassing to the people who actually know Kabbalah, the Sephardi Jewish people and the other kinds of Jewish clans who are part of this tradition of knowing what they're talking about. Us Anglo-Kabbalists don't know what we're talking about. We've mystically baffle-gabbed, as my teacher tells me. We've baffle-gabbed our place and ourselves into a position of being unwilling to admit that we're making things up. So it's really, really challenging to get quality information now, because English proliferated studies are basically from this. And this is why Germany said that we're complete dummies and that we shouldn't be trusted with esotericism. Which is kind of true, but then they weaponized it into political aims, which is not good at all. So it's using something that's kind of valid, and then turning it into something that's totally power corrupting and usurping of the individual's ability to even think anymore. So a lot of this was covered by Walter Hanegraaff in a recent blog, and I guess he wrote a book, New Age and Culture or something. And I'm really excited to get that, or Western Esotericism and the New Age Culture, or something like that. It's a brand new book. He published it, self-published it. I'll show a copy up there. But anyway, so the point is that we have to stop making things up. Like, we don't know just because we're sitting silent and we're trying to meditate and we're trying to have a good time and we're trying to feel good. That's not it. That's not it at all. In fact, that's how your vessel shatters. So I'm grateful to be able to release this, to be able to share some of this knowledge. And please keep coming back to the Omni Shelf for more Lurianic Kabbalah for the first time in the English language.